Hello, everybody. I am here with Karen Mack on this wonderful Wednesday in Washington, D.C. And Karen and I wanted to put together a little video with some tips. We know there's quite a few people working from home now. Everybody's in their self-quarantine. So we wanted to, given our extensive history working from home, we felt this was useful to throw some tips out there for the folks. So Karen, why don't I let you kick us off with a little introduction so the folks get to know you?
Sure. Thank you, Patrick. Let me start by saying I appreciate Patrick and his sense of service. And that's really what we're doing, is providing a service for those who may not have had a lot of time working at home. This may reach some of those who work from home periodically, or those who have never worked from home before, or those who work from home and could add to some of the things that we may have to say. And so as a coach and an organization development consultant, I have something to add because I've been working from home for about 30 years. And so here we go.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, in the same boat. And I think it's the least we can do in these times, Karen, is give some best practices. So Karen, what is your first tip for folks working from home? What do you think is an essential tip for folks now that they'll be working from their home offices?
One of the things, thanks, Patrick. One of the things that I knew I had to do early on was create a space and create an environment, some sort of area that I could work in. I have a row house and I rent the apartment downstairs, so I don't have a separate room per se, but I do have a special workspace. So whatever the case may be, find something that will remove you from everyday interactions as much as possible to create a space that's just for work. I find that was very helpful for me starting out, to put me in the mental space of I'm at work now, and it may be helpful for others as well.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback right on that. And my first tip is when one carves out that workspace, I have found it helpful to get out of that space and into a different space, maybe once an hour or as time permits. So leaving work in that space and maybe carving out 10-minute periods, if it's every hour or every hour and a half, 10-minute periods where energetically we get to move out of that space and into some other spaces, whether it's outdoors or doing something, throwing on some laundry. But it helps reset the system so we can jump right back into the space when it's time to work.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Actually, that's part of another point or another tip that I had.
Number 2.
All right. So then as I look at that, managing distractions. So in your workspace, you're going to have some distractions. And I broke it down when I thought about the tips and ideas. I broke it down into 3 types of distractions, looking at what happens to me and what happens to a lot of my coaching clients. So the first one is managing my own distractions. That's what's in my head, ideas, thoughts. That's one you have to practice when you manage. And then what you were alluding to, Patrick, just a moment ago, those external distractions. While yes, you do want to have time away and breaks and things like that from what you're doing during the day so you can be more productive, you also want to be able to manage those distractions. And what I found, I have no problems with this, and others may have to work with a little bit, is managing boundaries. So managing phone calls, managing the notifications that come up on our computers and our phones, those kinds of things. Managing that will help us stay focused. And then those of us who have children, now that a lot of folks are home with their children, they're going to be they are going to be distractions. And so planning for that would be something I'd say. What about you?
Yeah, beautiful. I love that tip. My second tip goes into the productivity realm, which is I find it helpful if there's work that needs to get done, especially with distractions. And, there's distractions that come up, and then there's, oh, I could go do laundry, or, oh, I could go take a walk. Like, there's the self distractions too. There's less accountability than just being in an office. So for me, something that I found helpful is to set a timer. Randomly, I'll set a timer for 20 minutes or sometimes 45 minutes or an hour. And then it gives me permission to block that time off and say, all right, for X time, I am just focusing on this task. And it allows me to just get very hyper-focused. So setting that timer, allowing the bell to go off and then kind of turning my attention. But it helps me. I can be a bit of a scatterbrain when there's, when I'm when my house is set up for distractions. So, it helps me with a timer to just get work done and then worry about setting another timer later on.
That's great, Patrick. And I think that with having your blocks of time also gives you the permission to take the break that you mentioned before as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about a third tip for the folks out there, Karen? Yeah.
Something that I found early on, because I've been out here for a long time, is visioning or seeing where I want to go and then having a plan for that. So folks who are working at home now, perhaps for the first time, or just working from home all the time now, what is it that you want to accomplish the next day? Or what did you discover during this day that needs to be accomplished tomorrow? Plan that. So I always take a moment to plan and think, now, do I do this every night? No. However, I have a pattern of thinking about the next day the night before so that it helps me go into the next day rather clear and focused on what is it that I need to do? What am I trying to do? Who do I need to get in touch with? All of those things. It's already mapped out, and I'm less scatterbrained the next day if I'm trying to figure that out. Doesn't always work, but that's one of the tips that I have.
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on that for 2 seconds. Then I'm going to give you my third one. So I'm sneaking in 3.5. What I love about that is something that I found helpful is at nighttime, setting out what are the 2 or 3 most important things I must do tomorrow, and then learning what my most productive times are, carving a boundary around that time no matter what. And then if nothing else really gets done the next day, except those things, I'm in a good place. And
it's a good day.
Right. It's a great day. Yeah. And my last tip here, this might be a little less than working from home, but it gives some structure. I really found it helpful to carve out some degree of morning quiet time, some degree of lunchtime quiet time, and some sort of a review, even if it's just 2 minutes at the end of a workday. It gives me 3 checkpoints through my day, and it allows me to isolate a morning and isolate an afternoon, and to actually check back in, take review, what's been working, what do I need to turn attention to. It helps create some degree of an artificial structure in the morning, afternoon, and evening, because otherwise I can get off on tangents and the day can get away from me.
Yeah.
I need some help with extra accountability around
that. Patrick, I'll say it's not artificial structure.
True. True.
It is structure. It is structure. And I'm glad to hear you say that. I'd like to do what you just did, just piggyback for a second and then give you one more tip. I've got lots, but I'm only going to give you one more after that. My morning starts with prayer and meditation. And if I don't do that, I notice my day it goes awry quicker than it could normally do. So I appreciate your saying that. And that gave me the space to say prayer and meditation for myself. Another big tip, well, I'm trying to decide which one of these do I want to share.
We might have to do more, Karen.
Or we might have to do more. Celebrate your accomplishments. Each day that you're working from home, particularly if this is a new thing for you, the things that you accomplish, give yourself the credit for it. That's going to energize you to do it again the next day and the next day and the next day. And since we are in this situation we're in, we don't know how long people are going to be asked to work from home. So celebrate yourself, celebrate your accomplishments. And even if they're the top 2, as you mentioned before, you only got 2 things done, you got those 2 things done. So acknowledge it and celebrate it. Absolutely. And be okay with wherever you are at the end of the day.
Yeah, Karen, we're coming up on 10 minutes here. So in parting to the folks out there, they want to get in touch with you, they want to know more, what should they do?
You can call me if you'd like, 202-546-0722, or look me up on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Same here, LinkedIn, social media, I'm all around. Send us both an email. We'd love to be there to work with people through any of this. It's all legitimate. It's all valid. Karen and I have a wealth of experience to help people through this. So you'll probably see some more of us because this was enjoyable, Karen. Thank you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. And thanks all of those who are listening, watching and listening.
Take care. Be safe, everybody.